In 2026, the US-Canada relationship, long celebrated as a model of peaceful coexistence and robust trade, was suddenly thrust into turmoil. What had once been a seamless partnership, built on decades of trust and mutual benefit, erupted into a bitter and unexpected trade war that sent shockwaves across both nations. Tariffs, threats, and political posturing quickly replaced years of cooperation. The catalyst, Canada's bold decision to sign a sweeping new trade deal with China. A move that caught Washington off guard and ignited fierce debate on both sides of the border. Suddenly, the friendly rhetoric gave way to accusations and ultimatums as leaders scrambled to protect their own interests. For the United States, this agreement felt like a deep betrayal. American officials worried that the deal would allow Chinese goods to flood North America, bypassing hard-fought tariffs and undermining U.S. industries. The fear was not just economic, but strategic. Would this open the door for greater Chinese influence in the region? The stakes could not be higher. Millions of jobs, the stability of North America's economy, and the very future of a century-old alliance now hang in the balance. Families, businesses, and entire communities on both sides of the border braced for the impact, uncertain of what the next day would bring. But this story is about more than just economics or trade policy. At its core, it's about trust, power, and the fragility of even the strongest partnerships. It's about how quickly alliances can fracture when national interests collide, and how difficult it can be to rebuild what's been lost. As the world watches this high-stakes standoff unfold, the choices made by leaders today will not only shape the future of US-Canada relations, but will also redefine what it means to be allies in an increasingly complex and interconnected 21st century. The world is holding its breath, waiting to see what comes next. The United States and Canada share one of the world's most deeply integrated and complex economic relationships. Stretching across nearly 9,000 kilometers of border, their partnership is built on decades of trust, cooperation, and mutual benefit. This connection is not just about trade. Yandor bikesen or desin and das soccer bite side den mine. Fall for Dorager Bunsen, bout. Been about families, communities, and businesses that rely on the seamless flow of goods and services every single day. Every day, more than $2.7 billion in goods and services cross the border, supporting millions of jobs on both sides. From bustling border towns to major cities, this economic artery fuels local economies and sustains livelihoods. The border is a lifeline for countless workers, truck drivers, and small business owners whose futures depend on open trade. Canada sends about 75% of its exports to the US, making it especially sensitive to any changes in American trade policy. A single policy shift in Washington can ripple through Canadian industries, affecting everything from agriculture to technology. For many Canadian businesses, access to the US market is not just an opportunity, it's a necessity for survival. Meanwhile, the US depends heavily on Canada for energy resources and critical minerals, key ingredients for powering homes, fueling vehicles, and manufacturing everything from smartphones to electric cars. This interdependence is vital for both countries' national security and economic stability. Nowhere is this cross-border cooperation more visible than in the auto industry. Here, supply chains are so intertwined that a single car part might cross the border several times before reaching the final assembly line. Canadian and American workers collaborate daily, building vehicles that are truly North American in origin. But this delicate system is always at risk. Tariffs and trade disputes threaten to disrupt the flow, putting thousands of jobs and billions of dollars in trade in jeopardy. When factories go idle or warehouses close, the impact is felt in communities on both sides of the border. The USMCA, the latest trade agreement between the US, Canada, and Mexico, was designed to safeguard this vital relationship. Yet as new challenges emerge, its limitations are becoming increasingly clear, reminding us just how fragile this economic lifeline can be. The spark for the trade war was Canada's decision to lower tariffs on a limited number of Chinese electric vehicles in exchange for China easing restrictions on Canadian agriculture. Prime Minister Carney's move aimed to diversify Canada's trade and reduce reliance on the US. But a speech at Davos, where Carney called for middle powers to resist economic coercion, was seen in Washington as a direct challenge. President Trump's response was swift and personal, accusing Canada of undermining US interests and threatening harsh tariffs. What began as a narrow trade deal quickly escalated into a diplomatic crisis. The stage was set for confrontation. The US threatened a sweeping 100% tariff on all Canadian imports, sending shockwaves through both economies. The announcement was sudden and dramatic, catching businesses and policymakers off guard. For decades, the US and Canada had enjoyed one of the world's closest trading relationships. But this move signaled a sharp turn toward confrontation. The threat wasn't just about economics, it was a message, a warning that the rules of engagement had changed overnight. Canada scrambled to reassure Washington, insisting its China deal was limited and did not violate USMCA rules. Canadian officials held emergency meetings, reaching out to their American counterparts in hopes of diffusing the crisis. They emphasized their commitment to fair trade and the importance of the USMCA agreement, but the assurances fell on skeptical ears in Washington. Diplomatic efforts failed to calm the storm. Trust was shattered. Behind closed doors, negotiators struggled to find common ground, but the atmosphere was tense and adversarial. Long-standing friendships between officials were tested as accusations and suspicions mounted. The threat of tariffs created panic in markets and uncertainty for businesses. Stock prices tumbled, and companies on both sides of the border braced for impact. Manufacturers worried about supply chain disruptions, while exporters feared losing access to their largest market overnight. Canada began accelerating its strategy to diversify exports, aiming to reduce dependence on the U.S. Trade delegations were dispatched to Asia and Europe, seeking new partners and opportunities. Canadian businesses, once comfortable with the status quo, now faced the urgent task of adapting to a rapidly changing global landscape. Meanwhile, the U.S. signaled it might bypass the USMCA entirely, raising fears of a full-blown trade war. Lawmakers debated the consequences, with some urging caution and others demanding a hardline stance. The possibility of unraveling years of cooperation loomed large, threatening to upend the economic stability of the entire continent. Both sides are now locked in a tense standoff, with the future of North American trade hanging in the balance. Every negotiation, every statement is scrutinized for signs of compromise or escalation. The world watches as two allies teeter on the edge of a trade conflict that could reshape the region for years to come. The diplomatic fallout is deep, and the alliance has never felt more fragile. As leaders search for a way forward, uncertainty lingers, and the once unbreakable bond between neighbors is now under unprecedented strain. The trade war's impact is immediate and personal. Prices are rising on both sides of the border as tariffs disrupt supply chains. Canadian farmers and auto workers fear job losses. American businesses face higher costs for Canadian materials. Investment is stalling as companies hesitate to expand amid uncertainty. Border communities, once closely knit, now feel divided and anxious. The conflict is eroding decades of goodwill, replacing friendship with suspicion. For millions, the trade war is more than politics. It's a daily reality. Is this trade war about legitimate retaliation or personal revenge? The U.S. claims it's protecting its economy from a backdoor influx of Chinese goods, but the scale and tone of the response, blanket tariffs and personal attacks, suggests something deeper. President Trump's shift after Carney's Davos speech points to wounded pride as much as policy. Canada's deal was a pragmatic move to support its own economy, not a betrayal. The American reaction feels less like negotiation and more like punishment for defiance. The line between alliance and dominance has never been blurrier. The US-Canada partnership stands at a crossroads. Escalation could destroy the USMCA and devastate both economies. De-escalation and negotiation offer a path back, but trust will be hard to rebuild. Canada is now determined to diversify its trade, making this reset a national priority. The US remains its key partner, but the era of unquestioned reliance is over. The world is watching. Will these neighbors let rivalry tear them apart, or find the wisdom to rebuild? The answer will shape the future of North America, and set an example for alliances everywhere.